everyone. Welcome to the Globe Mission Earth webinar series. Tonight, we'll be talking about students doing research for their projects and how they can formulate a good research question. I'd like to thank all of our partners in assisting us with helping the Globe program try and build systematic innovation in STEM education. We couldn't do it without them, and they will also be assisting us in a future webinar series. So for introductions, we have Dr. Kevin Czajkowski from the University of Toledo, who is heading these webinar series. Rick Sharpe from Huntington High School is here for our teacher feature, and he will be discussing how he implements Globe programs and protocols into his science room, classroom. We have Mikell Hedley with a presentation on how to formulate good research questions. And we do not have John Moore from the New Jersey Devils, but we do have John Moore from the Palmyra Cover Environmental Discovery Center, and he will be talking to us about satellite imagery and some of the things that they do there. So formulating a good research question is kind of a outline of what's going to be talked about today. We're going to be starting with the NASA Nugget with John Moore, and then we will continue with the presentation with Mikell Hedley and Rick Sharpe with questions to follow. As a reminder, we've got the Urban Heat Surface Temperature Student Research Campaign currently going on this December. We want to encourage students and teachers to continue to participate in this field campaign as it's getting closer and closer to being over. Also, we've got science fairs coming up with the Globe Virtual Symposium on April 3rd. Regional science fairs will be done in May, with the Midwest Regional Science Fair being held at Purdue University the 19th and 20th. If you want to learn more about some of these science fairs, Jen Bourgeot from Globe will be here to discuss these science fairs on the next webinar. I'll talk about how students and teachers can get in touch with Globe scientists and get feedback on students' projects. So the Globe website actually has a portion of their website dedicated to this, where teachers can get in touch with these scientists. The path name on how to get here is highlighted in the red box there in the top portion of the screen. And these regions can be clicked on. Other scientists in that region with their research areas and what protocols they do in Globe. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to John Moore, where he will be discussing what they do.
Okay, is everybody seeing this?
Thanks, Jan. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, all right, here we go then. So this is just an update. Some of you in the Mission Earth community have heard about this, or whether you're in the Globe community, about the GOES-R satellite collaboration mission. But the reason we're talking about that tonight is because just last Saturday evening at 6:42, the GOES-R satellite was successfully launched from Cape Canaveral in Florida. A couple of us were down there. It was pretty exciting because it had a launch window from 5:42 to 6:42, and a couple rocket issue delays, and then several.
Hey Sam, you said it just reached
several down range issues, and so it actually went at the last possible minute, 6:42, but it went up. So it's pretty exciting being there. All kinds of anybody who touched that project over the last, whatever it was, 10 or 12 years, from NOAA to the contractors were there. So it was pretty exciting for me to be part of that. Some of you may or may not know that I am part of a GOES-R education proving ground, which was funded through NOAA and Margaret Mooney, who many of you know from University of Wisconsin, Madison, at the Sims Satellite Center there. So I'm going to go through actually most of my slides, other than the title slide, are Tim Smits, who's one of the scientists that worked on that. And I bring this globe thing up because I'll talk about that for a second at the end. But Tim is one of the scientists that's on the globe STEM team for the GOES-R project. And if we have time, I'll just mention that quickly. Okay, so here's a slide on the proving ground. And so I'm not going to read you the slide, but it's there. If you Google this, it'll take you to the Sim Center. And for the teachers out there, you can see there are a couple teams from across the United States. We have several lessons, and Margaret also has a lot of resources that tap into both, Satellites 101, the more technical end, but also has the some of the educational products that were being developed. We did have a pre-launch conference on Friday down in Florida where we present this material. And so it seemed to go over pretty well from my perspective. And so there's another group of satellite junkies that are centering around here. So the connection of GOES-R to the Mission Earth project is, as I said before, it is one of Globe's satellite collaboration missions, and I'm certainly using it at my Globe partnership in New Jersey, and some of the other Mission Earth training workshops have been using this as well. So there's outcomes there, and the things that I'm just going to talk about quickly are, look at the words there that are the overlap between what we're trying to do with Mission Earth and the specific satellite. So satellites, remote sensing applications, getting satellite data in the classroom, and the role of GOES-R to the educational community. So here's a little history for those who are not up with GOES. By the way, this is, as you see, a NASA-NOAA partnership. And so there's a long history of the GOES satellite. GOES satellites, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure everybody that's online right now knows, but in case you're watching this afterwards, it's a geostationary satellite. One of the things I was excited about introducing this to the Globe community is the rest of the satellites that are up there, SMAP, GPM, etc., are all polar orbiting satellites. So GOES is a geostationary satellite. And a lot of people, even in the weather community, say, what's the big deal? It's just another GOES satellite. Well, that's not true. This is not just another GOES satellite. So the R series is the beginning of several that are coming out into the future. And what I'm going to show is a couple slides why there's a huge leap in technology that's coming that will impact all of us that use satellite or GOES information. And it's not just clouds, as you'll see in a second. So there we go. We'll move along. So why GOES-R? You can read that. But look down the bottom is the checkpoints there. So it's improving and increasing, simply put. The clouds are not the only thing that's looking at. It will have the GLM, which is a global lightning mapper. So right now, probably only one of the only lightning networks is through WeatherBug, which is all ground-based. So this is the first instrument that will be space-borne that they'll be able to see lightning. It also has aerosols instrument on board, and it has something that will be working with the electromagnetic spectrum and helping space weather monitoring, as you see there. So there's a lot of instruments on board. As far as what you might expect to be the traditional, Western Hemisphere cloud pictures, it's going to be the slides coming up. So I'll just hold on, go to the next slide, so it's there. So here's some more of the technical stuff. But if you look down, kind of in here, the ABI. This is what Tim is talking about. This is what you need to remember: 3, 4, 5. So there's 3 times more spectral bands, 4 times the spatial resolution, and 5 times temporal coverage. And you can read the rest of what's going on there. So here's a picture of the satellite itself. It's about the size of a school bus. And this is just a picture showing where the instruments are. So those of us that teach about satellites or in the STEM aspect, when you have different exercises that are out there about students building satellites, it's important for them to understand that there's the bus, the main part of the satellite, and then different instruments are designed by different engineering and science teams that are then put into that. So here's a little bit further. This is Tim, by the way, in his money suit. He was there when they were putting that together. So it was fun being around him because he had worked on it, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years. It was always fun for me as a science educator to be around scientists that just spent, big bulk of their career working on one thing, and you just see him biting his nails as things ready to go lift off. But you see, this is the 543, so it's kind of backwards, but faster coverage, 5-minute full bits versus what currently is 25. You put that together with 4 times the spatial resolution. What that means in plain English, if you see like towering cumulus thunderheads coming up like in tornado season through Tornado Alley, you're waiting for a loop every 25 minutes. This will refresh every 5 minutes. And the resolution is astounding. Also, that will prove to be very important in hurricanes. The higher resolution is astounding. And as you can see, the spectral bands, so they're tripling plus the amount of spectral bands within the spectrum there. Okay, so here's some more pictures. There's Tim standing by to get a size of how big this thing is. So if you want to just talk about physics or aerospace engineering, you have this big chunky thing here that you have to put on top of a rocket and lift up into space. It's quite a feat when you see it. Here's a little bit about the lightning mapper. You can look at that, but as I said before, a couple of highlights there. Bullet number 2, get out the sparse readings. And so it's just another piece of the puzzle. So Kevin and Mike Jabot, who's on there, I know, as well as myself, and I don't know some of the others, but those of us that are into the geospatial GIS thinking, this is just another layer to the data. So when I think about myself as well as teaching students, when you're monitoring the Earth, thinking in the geospatial referencing mindset is that these are layers. So how many layers can we get? So every satellite that NASA or NOAA puts up is yet another layer. So right here, so we have a lightning layer, we have soil moisture layers, we have GPM precipitation layers, we have carbon layers. So as the satellite community begins to put up more and more Earth observing satellites, we as scientists, but also the future generation students, this is groundbreaking information for them. And what's astounding, some of us were talking a little earlier about, where can you find this in the public schools? Probably nowhere other than the people that are on this webinar right now. It's not there. They're not exposed to it. Just today, we had a college group from Rowan University at our center, and I asked them that direct question. How many of you, 25 people there, how many of you have ever heard this kind of stuff before, seen anything, know that there's Earth monitoring satellites? And the answer is 0. And these people, I don't know what grade they're in the university, but they're at least 19 or 20 years old, 0 exposure to this. This is the importance, I feel the importance of Mission Earth is that as we put this project together and introduce this into the schools, this is going to be the door to work on that. But here's some of the spectral bands. So anybody that plays around with ImageJ or Landsat images, just to tease out different things that you're looking at, and all the microns and that, more complicated than I can understand. Something like Kevin, I guess you get it, but and some of the other people, but I do know at least about, teaching out the spectral bands to get looking at specific items. Okay, look at the pile of products here. You can kind of look at those very quickly. What are going to be able to be gleaned out of that? Down the bottom is the GOES-R, as you can see, .gov website. If that's the launching pad, you can get to the education proving ground, but you can also be looking at what's going. So what the timeline is, it's in orbit. It will take, I think they're saying, 3 to 6 months in order to test and validate the equipment so that it goes into production, as Noah calls it. And they still have not decided whether it's going to be goes east or west. But once it's designated, it will go from being called GOES-R to GOES 16. Okay, so here's the summary. You can read that. I don't need to read it to you. It's kind of the 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. That's what you need to remember to talk to people. And as I said, it's a quantum leap in GOES technology from what we're used to, and just opens up so many more avenues of science investigation. There's Tim again. Tim's right here, Tim Smith. So that's him overseeing that. There's the website again. I think I have one more slide. Maybe not. So let me just finish by, I'll put this one back up again. Hold on. Slideshow from the beginning. So just a quick plug for the Globe GOES-R. If you go to the Globe website, look under Collaborating Satellite Missions, you'll see my GOES-R project there. Very simple to implement, low technology, so you don't need to buy a lot of equipment. Just basically the overview is this. Here's the science behind it. Climate scientists have predicted that in the future we will have more frequent and severe weather events. And so that's a prediction at this point. And so my belief was that Globe teachers and students and all of us educators and scientists need to start documenting that data. And that's something easy that our students can do. And there's 2 ways you can look at it. Just look at local events that come by you as it happens. Or if you're really into the stuff and you live in kind of a boring weather place, you can go on, the internet and watch what's going on. So, yesterday I see David's online, Tennessee's on fire. There's a line of tornadoes that were down there. They're coming up this way through Philadelphia tonight. There's always stuff going on, so your students can look at that. And the educational value of that, to me, is to move the students into the idea that, the earth is fluid and dynamic, it's constantly changing, and in the schools, as a laboratory, we can start monitoring the earth and seeing what's going on. Any kid that goes home and watches any news broadcast, any channel, it's all over the internet, it's in their face all the time. And where the chasm occurs is that then when they go to school, there's no place for them to hear about it, ask questions, or anything around that area. And I think the Mission Earth team, led by Kevin, that's one of our objectives, where our project is going to do something about that. And with that, I'll turn the mic and screen over to you, if I can figure out how to do that. Okay, stop sharing. There we go.
Thanks, John.
And I'm all finished. Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for listening.
That was really informative because I didn't know all that stuff about GOES-R. Does anybody have any questions for John? Yeah, and while people are thinking or typing questions or can ask, I'll just mention this one thing. I've been getting a flurry of emails the last 2 days because NASA is planning to fly aircraft over Lake Erie in February. And what's really cool is we're going to get to, I hope, so I'm mentioning this because the teacher's on the line. I'm hoping that the students in this area near Toledo can take surface temperature observations when the aircraft from NASA fly over February. So what they're planning to do is to look at Lake Erie ice, but we're also going to be able to look at urban heat island effect because they're going to fly over land as well. What was interesting about the exchange of emails is that the plan is to match up the aircraft data with GOES-R data. And because GOES-R has all those thermal bands, scientists will be able to do really good thermal analysis of the surface.
Yeah, I'll add on to that quickly, Kevin. Is a colleague of mine at Rowan University worked on the ABI instrument, and my colleague, who many of you know, Pete Dorfy, is working on that as a master's thesis. But one of the things that the ABI will, they're writing an algorithm that will tell the difference between snow and ice.
Okay.
GOES-R will do, and of course that ties into, moves over into the land of military, so we know what the difference is. Right now it all looks white, but that's, you know, had to do with the resolution. So I'm happy to hear you talk about the aircraft, but Pete is looking for globe schools to in that Great Lakes region to, you know, confirm these pixels, and he has something, so we can talk about that offline. But the idea is we need eyeballs on the ground too, surface temperature, to say, is this ice or snow? It's very simple, but that's for another day.
Right. Melody asked, of course I stole your thunder now, Don, but she asked about the Lake Erie ice. I'm thinking, Melody, that the aircraft will probably fly over your school in the Maumee River. I asked that they fly. It was really cool. They asked what latitude and longitude you want the aircraft to fly over, so I gave them some of our coordinates for our Toledo schools, so it should fly over Navarre Elementary. Pretty close to Lake High School, James. University of Toledo, of course. I wouldn't have them fly over without going over the University of Toledo. Here's another question from Richard. How can we access the new data from GOES-R? So John, how can we access the data from GOES-R?
Okay, so I just responded back while you were talking. That's okay. GOES-R website. I mean, it's going to be, it might be showing you little snippets and samples, but you know, it'll be ultimately through GOES-R, but I don't think we'll have access to all the products until they go through the validation thing and actually turns into GOES 16. So hold on, but you know, keep following the GOESR.gov website because they'll be having that discussion at that space.
Yeah, so my thought was it takes 3 or 4 months at least to test out the system. And so, yeah, if we get images right around February when this NASA aircraft is going to fly over the Great Lakes area, I think we'd be doing pretty well. So that's what we're probably looking at. All right, thanks, John. Rick Sharpe, we lost you for a while, but are you back? And
yes, we had a thunderstorm pass through, and I'm at school, and our lights blinked. So I lost connection.
I bet GOES-R could have detected that lightning.
It probably could have.
All right, so I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, as a science teacher that's very active in surface temperature campaign every year, we're actually in the middle of our virtual science fair project right now that's based on surface temperature observations. I know it's ahead of your surface temperature campaign, but we were trying to incorporate aerosol observations into this again, and as usual, we were not successful because it was either too hazy or too cloudy or overcast every time we tried to do it. So we pretty much established our questions based upon the variables that we see that are normally there, like elevation, wet or dry, cloud coverage, cloud type, you know, variables like that that are easily detected. That's why I like to use the surface temperature protocol and cloud protocols for a lot of our science fair entries. So, you know, my video, oh, sorry. Let me start the video, guys. I look better without it.
I was wondering.
So anyway, we're active. We're right in the middle of it right now. We're going to participate in the surface temperature campaign as we do every year. We also have another major project with globe hydrology that we have to complete in the spring, so we had to start this one a little bit earlier than what we had planned on. But it's working out well. If you're familiar with the rubric, we're just sort of just working through the rubric just a step at a time, because it pretty much follows the template for conducting a science project. So that's sort of the way we've introduced our students to it. And I have co-taught classes, so I have some students that have some learning disabilities, and project-based learning and very clear-cut data collection like surface temperatures works out extremely well for us. So, you know, that was pretty much, I was asked to talk about what we were planning on doing, but I wasn't asked for a presentation, so.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Well, good. Now, you've worked with me, and I'm a scientist, right?
Yes.
Have you worked with any other scientists on your projects?
I've worked with Dr. Brooks when we worked with aerosols, because we were having some difficulties getting our observations into the globe database for whatever reason. So we worked with him, and he's given us an AOT calculator that's based on an Excel spreadsheet. And so we've used that and worked with Dr. Brooks a good bit. But that's pretty much the only one. As you know, I spoke with you earlier this year about our kids consulting you. We're just not quite at that point yet. So we're downloading data right now. In fact, that's what we're doing. We're processing our data. We've already entered the data in the website. We're now downloading that and from other schools for our projects.
And you correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the website is working pretty well for getting data. It seems to be able to be searched a little better than it used to be. Yes,
it's much better. If you use the advanced search tool, you can just start breaking it down by numbers using, increasing your filters, and that works extremely well. The visualization tool also works quite well if you want to take the time to learn and you're interested in precisely where the school you're dealing with is located from a geospatial standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody knows what Rick is talking about. Well, there's two ways of getting data off the globe website. One is through the visualization system. The other is through the advanced filter. The advanced filter is like the old way we used to be able to get the data, is like a tabular search engine. Actually, why don't I show that for a second?
There are a couple of advantages to the visualization system that are not there for the advanced filtering system, and you get a lot of data that you don't need when you use the advanced filtering system. So you have to spend a good bit of time taking out data that either you don't need or the data is just simply not collected.
Right. So the visualization system, go under visualize data. I don't know if everybody's done this before, but I'll just show it quickly. Maybe I won't be able to show it, but let's see. My internet sometimes is not the best at home. But so you get a map. You go over on the left and you click layers to add a layer. Similar to GIS, you can add some kind of temperature. I'll do surface temperature. Add layer. Then I'll show you today's readings, which probably aren't too many. Yep, not too many, only a few. And this fall there's only a few. The number will pick up next week when we get into December here, as the students start taking observations. Might have 30 or 40 schools a day reporting. You can look at the data counts also on the left. So anyway, I can change the date last week. One thing I like to do is look at data counts. So here we see blue in the United States for colder, Saudi Arabia red for hotter. Anyway, you can do data counts. You can see how many schools have taken data. Of course, then it defaults to 1999 as the beginning, and you can see where schools have taken the data. Let's see. I don't want to zoom in too much. If I do. Yep. That's the problem. It's very touchy. try to zoom in so you can. But anyway, then you can click on the school, see the school name. Usually the size of the dot represents the number of observations taken, and you can see there's a fair number of schools in the United States that are taking observations. Then the other approach is doing your advanced data search. So if you go to globe data, retrieve data, click on that, enter the data access tool. So, and then all the filters are on the left-hand side here. You can select by protocol. So I'll select by surface temperature. Happens to be my favorite protocol. Don't know why. And I cannot see. I guess going on. Here goes surface temperature. And that, add protocols. So then, it gives you all the schools that have taken surface temperature forever. So you probably don't want all those schools. So you may want to do a date range. So let's click on date range. You change it to 2016, and maybe make it September till today. You add, and it goes through it pretty quickly, which I think is really nice. And then you can see all the schools. Huntington, West Virginia shows up here. See it? Just a few times. Usually, RIC students have the most surface temperature observations of all the students, of all the schools that participate. But some schools challenge Huntington. Anyway, I wanted to just bring that up. So, Steve, do you have any comments you can add about working with scientists?
Did you want me to respond?
Yeah, you.
Oh, okay. Well, we live, and our students live in an age of they need everything instantly. And I think that's part of that generational thing with them. But yeah, they're starting to get some responses back from the scientists, and it's pretty interesting because generally they're asking a lot of questions, and it's really getting the kids looking at what they're doing much more in depth. And like, for example, one of my students just doing the work on shortgrass, and they were really struggling as far as, well, what can I do with this? What application does this have? And the questions then started coming in, and now they're looking at, like golf course management, and, they're looking at other venues, and they like playing soccer. So now they're looking at, oh, there's a soccer field component to this. So it really got them thinking beyond just, I'm taking data on, this grassy field. So, but yeah, I mean, the students really want things instantly, and that's kind of their generation. But the responses that are coming back have really, really been insightful, and it's definitely causing the kids to dig deeper into their own thought process as far as why they're doing what they're doing.
So, Steve, you're saying that the kids contacted scientists or engineers, and then they're getting responses back from those scientists and engineers?
Yeah, I think right now I've got 7 kids who reached out, and they're still kind of, we call it shopping for a scientist, and some of them are struggling with that part too. But I think they've made 7 contacts, and I think we've gotten 3 responses back thus far. One time it was the wrong email address was typed in, so that was one of those, just double checking your work. But yeah, so we're around the 50% mark right now, and it's been, some of them have waited. It's been about 2 weeks now, so that's when we started looking at, was there a mistake in the email, and trying to reach out a second time. So
yeah, 2 weeks is usually a long time for a response. So yeah, I would check back on that. And Tracy actually pointed out that one of the issues with the GISN is there's no email or way to contact the scientists and engineers on the GLOBE website. So the way you have to do it then is to Google the person's name to get their email or contact information. That does seem like the problem. And, so I wonder if that's something that I should probably bring that up to the GIO. Steve or anybody else, did you have problems with that also? Well, nobody's responding to that question, so I guess I'll just say it's a problem. It seems like a problem.
I'm going to mute myself back up so we don't get any more interference, I guess.
Okay. Now, Melody asked, is their school or business affiliation listed? Yes, it is. So usually it says who they're who they're with. Just want to look at that quickly. All right, so I might be able to get Mike's PowerPoint on here.
Good evening.
Let me see if I can share my screen, and then we can see what Mike has to say, because she always has good things to say. Set up. There we go.
Good evening. Tonight I want to discuss with you background research for your research project. What's a good reason for background research? There are quite a few. Number one, to increase your understanding about your subject area. Number two, to enhance and develop your vocabulary about the subject. In science, almost all areas have particular vocabulary that's just vocabulary, so when you look at different articles, you'll know what they're talking about. Next, to develop an understanding about what has been done in the experimentation in your subject area before. There's an old saying that says, don't reinvent the wheel. What that means is that you don't want to do in your experiment something that somebody else has already done. Otherwise, they'll say, you're just trying to reinvent the wheel. Next, in order to have an informed hypothesis, you have to have some idea about the background of an area where you are trying to do your experimentation. What are some examples of reliable research resources? Professional journals in the subject area. For instance, if you are interested in biology, it might be important for you to look at a journal that centers on biology rather than, say, physics or astronomy. Next, some magazines that are reliable resources are Discover and Science and Nature. Discover is a magazine that is good for students, I would say, from grades 5 to 12. If you have a better background in science and a good science vocabulary, you might look at Science Magazine, which has actual research articles in various subject areas of science. Next, articles by noted experts in the field. You don't want to go to, say, a dentist to find out information about nuclear physics. Next, some organizations that give you good information about particular subject areas in science are NASA and NOAA. Those two are pretty well generally known. Another one is AGU, which is the American Geophysical Union, or AGI, which is the American Geosciences Institute. One that is my favorite is GLOBE. GLOBE is an environmental group that joins scientists, teachers, and students to study the environment. and the University Science Department research websites. For instance, Dr. C or Dr. Czajkowski's actual website. What are some unreliable resources? Unfortunately, most blogs are put out by unreliable authors or sources that present unproven information or theories. In other words, they're basically giving you just their opinion and not something that's backed up by real data and science. Secondly, websites that don't have accredited scientific authors. For instance, maybe you have a friend that likes to put things on the web. That doesn't mean that that particular person has the information you need and be able to rely on in areas of science. Next, encyclopedias. If there are science encyclopedias that have been published very recently, they might give you some up-to-date information about science. But other than that, I would bypass the encyclopedias. Popular magazines and newspapers are not reliable resources because the articles in them are not written by scientists but by journalists. So they may have incorrect explanations about phenomena, or they may have incomplete data. Once I find the research, how do I best use it? Immediately write down in your logbook the APA version of the bibliographical reference for the resource so you can find it again if you want to check back on the information. What does the APA version of bibliographical reference mean? Groups pick out a particular way to reference any information they have in articles. For scientists, APA is the version that's used. Therefore, you will find that the best resource to use in your science research project. I've included in this presentation a reference to the APA source. It is a free reference that you can use without any fear of doing it incorrectly. Next, write down any important information, facts, and theories in your logbook. Your logbook will become something that you should have with you always when you are doing any research or doing your actual project. Next, in that book, define any new science vocabulary. Different areas of science have vocabulary that's just suitable to them. Therefore, you need to include a definition of that vocabulary in your book so that when you read articles, you have the real thing that they're talking about. What are some things to remember when using research materials? You can quote directly no more than 10% of the material of an article. The rest must be put in your own words. Remember, any direct quote must be in quotation marks or indented if it is a long reference. Again, see the APA reference guide. Remember as well that no more than 10% of your paper should be in quotes. What does this 10% actually mean? Suppose I'm reading an article and it has 1,000 words in it. That means that I may directly quote no more than 100 words from that article. And in the same way, my whole paper, say it's 30 pages long, then only 3 pages of that could include all the direct quotes in your whole paper. Next, all images, graphs, pictures, and data used from a research article must have a reference to the source. Remember, keep all this information in your logbook and date it so people will be able to see the work you have been doing on your project day by day. What are some tips for your logbook? Your logbook is a record of your science research project. Be sure to record all of your work in your logbook. including, and sometimes this may seem really hard to do, include those things in your logbook that didn't work out the way you thought they would. Remember, data, even though it doesn't support your research hypothesis, is important information for you to know and for others to know. Next, date each of your entries in your logbook. It shows the time you have spent on your project and shows the progression you have made. Next, record your experiment in your logbook, including your hypothesis based on your background information, all your data, good and bad data, graphs, and conclusions. It should be like a recipe of how you did your experiment, so that others, if they wanted to, could follow exactly what you did and come up with the same conclusions you did. Next, take pictures of your experiment and add them to your board and to your logbook. You may notice that in this particular picture, there is no face, so I would not be able to recognize the person that is in this photograph. If you are going to use photographs of actual individuals and use them so that they could be recognized, you must have permission from that individual to have their picture in your experiment. If they are minors, you will have to have their parents' signature. If they are regular older adult people, then just their signature is sufficient. What are some reliable websites for reference material? The first one I would suggest you look at immediately before you do your background research is the AP Reference Guide, which is put out by Purdue University. The nice thing about this particular website is it allows you to get the information you need without buying a book. It is free for you to use. Next, NASA Wavelength for news, data, and images. This is a great website for anything that NASA has areas of interest in, which includes almost everything. So it's a good data and image website for students. Building Ocean, Coastal, and Climate Literacy for Students is a good website that has anything to do with water and atmosphere. Next, NASA for Education. This is a special website for students that informs you about everything that NASA is interested in, whether it is particular satellites and what they are studying, or if it's their look at climate change. Almost any area of science is something that NASA is interested in, and you should be able to find information about it at this website. Last but certainly not least is Globe. Globe is a website that has not only field protocols, but data and activities that you can use to study anything that has to do with the environment. Their field protocols are something that you can use actually to go out and use to experiment about things in the environment. The data that there is data that is put on by either scientists or students who are doing research in areas of the environment. And finally, activities which may help you to understand better any particular area that you are studying about environmental areas. Do you have any questions? Tonight, unfortunately, I cannot be with you personally, but I have asked Janice Struble, who is a longtime colleague of mine and who has very much experience in education and doing research projects, to help you out if you have questions. So if you will, you can contact her by chat tonight and get answers to your questions. Also, if you need assistance with background research, you can contact me at my email. Please note, very much, and good evening.
All right. So, hopefully that came through okay. No one contacted me and said that there was a problem hearing what Mike had to say. I think it was good. She talked about the doing your research, how much you can quote. Even 10% is a lot to put in a paper direct quote like that. Some of my students actually do that. They put in about 10% of their papers quote in quotations. I really discourage students from doing that. Only quote things that are really important from a source. I want to read it in their own words. Another thing is that you'll find is students will copy and paste stuff off the internet. Just be aware of that. For projects I have them submit their projects to SafeAssign. SafeAssign checks for copied information. I don't know if you teachers and others use those type of things, but most of the university professors do not. And I think students can kind of get away with a lot here. Fortunately or unfortunately, the buck stops with me when it comes to plagiarism and copying stuff off the internet. And a lot of students fall into that. They'll ask me stuff about what did I plagiarize? And I'll tell them, I'm not going to tell you. You have to figure that out. So I don't let them know. You have to go through and change stuff. Are there any questions about doing background research? So giving the dramatic pause. There's a lot of times we forget to have our kids do background research, and then we try to have them do it at the end. Oh, yeah, get some references for that. So it's something to try to do up front if you can. Yeah. Let's wrap this webinar up. We actually got through everything we wanted to, even though there was some glitches. I'll share my screen. So our next webinar is going to be our December 14th. That's going to be in the middle of our field campaign about urban heat island / surface temperature student research campaign. That's what it's called now. Susan James is going to be our teacher feature, and then Jennifer Bourgeot is going to talk about the Globe Regional Science Fairs. I'll give an update on the student research campaign. I also wanted to mention on December 6th, Globe is going to have an ENSO webinar at 8 o'clock as well, Eastern Time. And Laura Shetter, who's from Toledo, she's going to talk about her H2U project. So if you have a chance to do that, if you want more information about it, you can email me, and I can give you the link for the El Nino, now called ENSO, webinar series. Lastly, I wanted to thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or anything, email Jan Strumel. We post these webinars on our Facebook page and YouTube. All right. Anything last comments from anyone? Okay. Well, anyway, thanks for calling in and get our students working on research projects. Good night.